Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer, presented by Forge College. I'm really glad you're here today. So in our last explainer, we tackled some pretty massive distributed concepts, specifically POH and consensus basics. We figured out exactly how nodes across the globe align on the state of the network. But today, well, we're bringing things right back down to earth, straight to your local development environment. Because let's face it, no matter how elegant the consensus mechanism is, at some point, you're going to write a smart contract, you're going to deploy it, and it's going to break. It's just the universal pain of Web3 development, right? Today, we're learning how to fix those breaks without completely losing our minds.
Be honest with me for a second. Have you ever just stared at a silent revert error on your screen with absolutely zero error message and genuinely questioned your career choices? Yeah, we've all been there. Most developers react to a broken transaction by immediately tweaking random lines of code, throwing in, a dozen console logs, and just hoping something magically works. It's basically the engineering equivalent of throwing darts in the dark while blindfolded. It's frustrating, it's totally chaotic, and frankly, it just wastes hours of your valuable time. But what if we actually had a system?
Here's our game plan for today. We'll start with an intro to code triage, move right into our core framework, which is the three-tiered checklist, and then learn how to map specific symptoms directly to diagnostic actions. After that, we'll walk through a real-world bug report to see it all in practice, dive into some actual decoding with ethers.js, and finally wrap up with our key takeaways.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1. Welcome to Code Triage. Stop guessing and start diagnosing. So I want you to start treating your broken smart contract transactions kind of like a patient rolling into the emergency room. I mean, doctors don't immediately rush a coughing patient into $1 million MRI machine, right? No, they check their pulse first. And this is the exact difference between how most people debug and how top-tier engineers debug. Ad-hoc debugging relies on guessing and expensive full-node opcode traces. Checklist triage, on the other hand, is deterministic and prioritizes cheap local checks first. Having a solid checklist literally turns sheer panic into a calm, defensible engineering process.
Moving on to Section 2, the three-tier checklist, prioritizing your probes.
So what exactly does this triage process look like in practice? Well, this is the core framework you should honestly tape to your monitor right now. The three-tier checklist. Tier 1 is quick reproduction and logs. Basically, can you actually reproduce the failure locally? Is it deterministic? Tier 2 is a lightweight simulation and error decoding. This is where we extract the exact reason why the contract failed, without actually changing any state. And finally, Tier 3 is the targeted trace or gas profile. This is that expensive MRI I mentioned earlier. You only order the full execution trace if Tier 1 and Tier 2 come back ambiguous. Always start with cheap, high-information actions before escalating.
Now, sometimes Tier 1, reproducing the transaction locally, doesn't yield nice, friendly, readable logs. Sometimes all you get back is a massive wall of hex characters. We call this return data. It's opaque, low-level failure data returned by the EVM when a transaction reverts. To the human eye, it's just total gibberish. But if we can extract this return data in Tier 2, we can decode it to reveal the concrete, actual reason our smart contract is so unhappy.
All right, Section 3, mapping symptoms to actions, the diagnostic matrix. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it completely removes your intuition and replaces it with reliable, repeatable behavior. We do this by mapping the specific symptom directly to the required action. Look at the first row here. If your symptom is an explicit revert, like a standard require statement failing, your immediate action is to reproduce it locally and check your variables. Pretty simple. Now, if you get an out-of-gas error, your first step is a local simulation with an artificially increased gas limit. And if you get that dreaded silent revert, you immediately try to extract and decode that return data, only escalating to a full trace of the internal call stack if the decoded data turns out completely empty. See how smoothly that flows?
Let's see this in action. Section 4, the real-world bug report, putting triage into practice.
Okay, theories and tables are great, but how does this actually save you time when your pager goes off at 2 a.m.? Imagine you receive this exact bug report in the wild. A user is trying to execute a transfer from function, but the transaction reverts completely silently on the block explorer. No error message, just a sad, failed transaction hash. Immediately, you should have two working hypotheses based on our checklist. First, is it something simple like a missing ERC20 token approval? Or second, is it a deep, low-level revert hiding way down inside an internal contract call? So, we embark on our debugging hero's journey. Step 1, we reproduce it locally to check the user's allowance variables. Everything looks perfectly fine. The allowance is there, but the return data is empty. Okay, moving on. Step 2. We escalate to a light simulation for internal calls. Still not obvious. So we hit step 3, we run a targeted trace specifically on the failing call frame. And boom! The trace reveals that deep down, a secondary staking contract was reverting due to a hidden time-based modifier. The user was simply trying to transfer tokens too early. By strictly following the tiers, we isolated that bug in minutes, completely avoiding hours of manually tracing opcodes.
Awesome. Section 5, decoding with ethers.js, the local reproduction script.
So we know the theory and we know the flow. Now, let's look at how we actually execute the first 2 steps using a compact Node.js script. To accurately reproduce a bug, you absolutely must perfectly mirror its environment. First up, we use provider.getTransaction to fetch the original failing payload. Second, we rigorously mirror the to, from, data, and value fields. You literally cannot change the sender address or the call data, or you're going to trigger entirely different execution paths. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, we execute provider.callPinned precisely to the original transaction's block number. If you don't lock down that block number, you might end up chasing phantom errors that only exist in your local environment.
That provider.call function we just talked about, under the hood, it's utilizing eth_call. This is an incredibly powerful RPC method. It runs a transaction payload as a read-only, non-state changing simulation at a specific point in time. It doesn't cost you any real gas, it doesn't broadcast to the network, but it successfully captures the raw return data as if the transaction had really executed. eth_call is for sure the absolute cornerstone of our lightweight simulation tier.
So you run the simulation. The local call throws an error, and you catch that raw data. The very first thing your script should do is check the absolute beginning of that hex string. You are looking specifically for 0x08C379A0. This is the standard solidity selector indicating that a require statement failed or the contract panicked. If you see this exact string, you know right away that just after it, there is an ABI-encoded string just waiting to be translated into plain English.
And when you slice that data and decode it, you get this absolutely beautiful output. ERC20 transfer amount exceeds balance. This right here is the ultimate goal of the triage phase. We found the exact cause of a previously silent error, we did it cheaply, we did it locally, and the best part? We didn't have to decipher a single line of raw EVM opcodes to get there. How great is that?
So what does this all mean? Let's get into Section 6, Key Takeaways and Next Steps, your debugging arsenal.
Debugging absolutely does not have to be a nightmare of trial and error. If you remember literally nothing else from this explainer, remember this overarching mantra. Cheap checks first, expensive traces last. Check the patient's pulse before you order the MRI. Run your local simulations and check your logs before you ever boot up a heavy node-level trace.
Let's do a rapid-fire summary. First, always confirm a bug is actually deterministic by reproducing it locally with the exact same context. Second, if you get a silent error, always attempt to extract and decode the return data using an eth_call simulation. Third, rely on the symptom-to-action table to guide your next steps logically rather than just guessing. And finally, please document your artifacts. If you have to hand the bug off to a teammate, handing them a decoded revert reason and a nice reproduction script is infinitely better than just saying, "I don't know, man, it just broke."
But of course, this leaves us with a lingering, provocative question, right? What happens when those cheap checks actually fail? What happens when the return data is totally empty, your local logs are useless, and you absolutely need to run a full execution trace? Well, that is exactly what we're going to be diving into in our next lesson on transaction tracing tools. To prepare for that and to explore a massive library of other Web3 resources, be sure to head over to forge.college. This explainer was presented by Forge College, and I can't wait to see you in the next one as we dive even deeper into the EVM. Happy debugging!